Michael Morbius was born and raised in Nafplio, Greece. The son of Macario Morbius, Michael was raised by his single mother after his father left them. Michael experienced an isolated childhood due to his rare blood condition. Despite his disease, he was an intellectually gifted and spent his time reading books. Michael had two best friends, Emil Nikos and his sister Liza Nikos. While in college, Michael and Emil became brilliant scientists, winning a Nobel Prize for their work in biochemistry. They attempted to cure the blood disease and developed an experimental treatment involving vampire bats and electroshocks. Its side effects turned him into a pseudo-vampire who needed to consume blood in order to survive, and gained typical vampire characteristics such as an aversion to sunlight, and the powers of flight, enhanced strength, speed, and healing, a healing factor. His overall appearance changed as well. He gained fangs, his nose flattened to appear more bat-like, and his skin became extremely pale. Additionally, the victims of his bite would turn into living vampires themselves. When he first experienced the change, he killed Emil as he could not control his bloodlust. When Liza learned of what happened to her brother, she swore revenge against Morbius. Meeting Spider-Man. Morbius traveled to the U.S. by ship, and in his bloodthirst slaughtered the crew. He tried to kill himself but failed and took a room at a beach house where he encountered Spider-Man, who was, at the time, trying to reverse the process that had given him 6 arms. Morbius attacked Spider-Man, but their battle was interrupted by Dr. Connors, who transformed into the lizard. Morbius escaped, but not before biting Connors, which partially returned him to normal. Spider-Man and Connors realized that Morbius' blood could be a cure for both of them and decided to help each other. They tracked him down and after another battle extracted some of his blood, causing Connors to remain in his human state and Spider-Man to lose his additional arms. Human Torch. Morbius was washed ashore and found by Jefferson and Jacob Bolt, on whom he tried to feed after being revived. He turned Jefferson into a vampire. Meanwhile, Morbius' fiancée Martine Bancroft tried contacting the Fantastic Four to help Morbius. The Human Torch sought out Morbius' former colleague, Hans Jorgensen, and joined forces with Spider-Man during another battle with Morbius. During the fight, Morbius accidentally killed Jefferson Bolt and fled. Legion of Monsters. Morbius joined the Team Legion of Monsters, who united by chance to investigate the appearance of the Starseed. Though Starseed was a benevolent entity, both the werewolf and Morbius, overcome by their monstrous hungers, attacked it. Ghost Rider and Man-Thing attempted to intervene, but Starseed was unable to overcome his fear of Man-Thing and suffered severe burns at his touch. The dying Starseed attempted to cure the Legion of their monstrous forms but was too weak and died. Morbius visited his old scientist friend Ronson Slade in hope for a cure to his disease. Ronson, however, had become a werewolf and Morbius was forced to kill him. Beyond Corporation. Somewhere down in Midtown, Morbius was spotted biting a whole new number of victims before being confronted by Spider-Man. The two battled, before Morbius seemingly fled the scene. Unsuspecting, Spider-Man investigated the victims before being caught by surprise and bitten by him. Morbius claimed that his blood was not working, meaning that he tried to use it to cure himself. Morbius later chased Spider-Man all the way to the Beyond Tower where the security systems there attacked him and blasted one of his arms off. Spider-Man fainted due to the effect of the bite and Morbius fought off Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, who finally immobilized him with a spider-like mechanical straitjacket. Beyond later experimented on Michael, stabilizing his condition in order to take a genetic sample from him and merge it with a sample of the lizard to create a giant vampire/lizard binary clone called Creature Z. After being rescued from captivity by the Daughters of the Dragon, Morbius made the creature consume his blood to break the balance between the lizard and vampire halves, making Creature Z's regenerative abilities go out of control and killing it. After seeing what Beyond did by themselves with both of their DNAs, Morbius returned to the Staten Island facility to convince an imprisoned lizard into working together. Powers. Pseudo-vampirism. Morbius has been transformed into a being similar to a vampire and, as a result, possesses a number of superhuman abilities similar to those possessed by true vampires. Morbius is not a true vampire, as the source of his transformation is scientific, not mystical. However, mystical elements have occasionally been introduced into his system, complicating the issue. Superhuman strength. Morbius possesses superhuman strength, the extent of which depends on the amount of blood he has ingested and the type of blood. At his peak, Morbius possesses sufficient superhuman strength to lift approximately 1,500 pounds. Superhuman speed. Morbius can run and move at speeds that are beyond the natural physical limits of the finest human athlete. Superhuman stamina. Morbius' enhanced musculature produces less fatigue toxins during physical activity than the musculature of a normal human. He can physically exert himself at peak capacity for several hours before the buildup of fatigue toxins in his blood begins to impair him. Superhuman agility. Morbius' agility, balance, and bodily coordination are enhanced to levels that are beyond the natural physical limits of the finest human athlete. Superhuman reflexes. Morbius' reflexes are similarly enhanced and are superior to those of the finest human athlete. Superhuman acute senses. Morbius' senses of sight and smell are enhanced to levels well beyond that of normal humans. Morbius is able to detect objects with perfect clarity at much greater distances than a normal human. He retains this clarity, even in near total darkness. He is also able to see into the infrared end of the electromagnetic spectrum, allowing him to see individuals at night by their body heat. His sense of smell is similarly enhanced, able to detect the scent of blood in the air from miles away. Regenerative healing factor. Like true vampires, Morbius possesses an accelerated healing factor that enables him to rapidly regenerate damaged bodily tissues much faster and more extensively than a normal human. Injuries such as gunshots, slashes, and severe burns heal within hours or minutes, depending upon their severity. Though highly developed, Morbius' healing powers aren't sufficient to regenerate missing limbs or organs. Fangs and claws. Like supernatural vampires, Morbius possesses elongated canines that he uses to pierce the flesh of other beings for the purpose of consuming their blood. Morbius can also, however, use his fangs as weapons in very close combat situations. He also possesses a single retractable claw at the tip of each finger. The claws are very sharp, capable of rending human flesh and bone with ease. Psionic gliding. Through mental concentration, Morbius is able to glide through the air over short distances. However, Morbius can only glide at speeds of about 35 miles an hour. Mesmerism. After absorbing elements of the Leline into his bloodstream, Morbius gained the ability to hypnotize others if they look directly into his eyes long enough. While under his control, Morbius typically has full control over an individual. If an individual has sufficient willpower, they can resist or overcome this power. Vampire creation. Like true vampires, Morbius is able to transform individuals into pseudo-vampires like himself by draining them of all their blood. Morbius has control over the pseudo-vampires he creates, just as supernatural vampires have mental control over the vampires they create. The vampires that Morbius creates possess superhuman strength but do not possess accelerated healing factors. Upon receiving lethal injuries, their bodies turn to dust. Immunity to most vampire vulnerabilities. As Morbius isn't a supernatural vampire, he is immune to all of the special mystical vulnerabilities that they have. He is unaffected if confronted with religious icons like crucifixes and will not incinerate if exposed to direct sunlight. Morbius does tend to rest during the hours of the day, but does not have any of the consequences of vampirism that supernatural vampires face during the daylight hours. Morbius also has no special vulnerability to objects or weapons composed of silver or wooden stakes driven through his heart. Virtual immortality. Morbius claims that he doesn't age. Abilities. Genius intelligence. Morbius is a brilliant Nobel Prize-winning scientist specializing in biochemistry and hematology. he is also able to put his hand to various other scientific disciplines. Hand-to-hand combatant. While he has had no formal training, Morbius' powers make him a formidable combatant against most individuals. Weaknesses. Hunger. The one true weakness Morbius has that supernatural vampires possess is that he must ingest fresh blood several times a week in order to maintain his physical and mental vitality. The longer he goes without blood, the weaker he becomes and the more likely he is to lose control. Sunlight. While he can't be killed by sunlight, his eyes and skin are sensitive to exposure to sunlight. Mental instability. Morbius has suffered through suicidal ideation of multiple occasions, desiring to end his own life when unable to cure himself of his condition. He has also been shown to suffer through visual and auditory hallucinations representing his hunger when he goes without feeding.